Why are historical inflation rates so confusing? Imagine trying to compare prices from 100 years ago to today. It sounds simple, but the numbers can be very misleading. That is because measuring inflation over long periods is not straightforward. The main reason for the confusion is that the way we measure inflation has changed a lot over time. In the past, data was limited, and the methods were not very precise. Early on, price data came from just a few commodities, often based on wholesale prices rather than what regular people paid. So, the inflation figures from those times might not truly reflected how much the cost of living was changing for most folks. When the 20th century arrived, governments started collecting better data. The United States Bureau of Labor Statistics began publishing the Consumer Price Index in 1919, with estimates going back to 1913. But even then, the basket of goods used to measure inflation was small and based on limited surveys. Over the years, the way they calculated inflation improved. They added more cities to the surveys, updated the list of goods, and changed how they weighted different items to match how people actually spend their money. Another complication is that inflation measures are not all the same. Some look at all prices, called the headline Consumer Price Index, while others exclude volatile items like food and energy, called the Core Consumer Price Index. The Federal Reserve also uses a different index called the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index. These different measures can give you varying inflation rates for the same period, which can be confusing. Methodologies are also revised over time to improve accuracy. When agencies update their calculations, it can make historical data look inconsistent or different from current figures. Sometimes, they even go back and recalculate past inflation using newer methods, which can change the numbers quite a bit. All these changes mean that comparing inflation rates from 100 years ago to today is tricky. You have to understand that the data was collected differently, and the baskets of goods have changed. When you see old inflation numbers, remember they might not be directly comparable to recent ones. That is why understanding the history of how inflation is measured helps explain why these rates can seem so confusing.